Alireza Firouzja is one of the best players in the world. In this video, he is taking on a very creative chess player. Welcome to Guess the Magician, guessing his opponent. Now, what is this video all about? Firouzja is going to play the same guy 3 times, and it will only be at the end of the video where I reveal who his opponent is. So let's begin. See if you can guess his opponent by the end of the video. Throughout, I'll be making clues as to who this guy is. First up, Firouzja has white against this guy. d4, d5. We have the Slav, and we get queen c2. The point of this move is to defend the c-pawn, but also to get an e4. a6, planning to go b5. This is called the Chebanenko Slav. So if white played a move like g3, then b5 is now possible, and you might go c5, you might even go b3. It's a totally different way to play. But knight d2 played today, and he didn't actually play b5. He went g6 first, this guy. The point of this move is not only to get the bishop out, but to get the other bishop out to f5 as well. e4, opening up the center, because now is Firouzja's chance to play e4. You can't play it next. Take, take, bishop out, take, take, bishop e2, castle, castle. White is more space in the center, so white is a bit better. Hit the queen, and typical move, queen out to b3, attack your opponent's b-pawn. Now you can play a move like rook a7, but not today. b5 is possible, also queen c7. b5. The pawns look a little bit weak on the queen side, and Firouzja, he attacks his structure. But first he attacks the rook, and then goes a4, putting a question to the queen side. And already the structure looks like it's going to fall. Now you've got to make a decision, and this guy took on c4. Now what's the point? What's the follow-up, I mean? Well, you're attacking f7, so the guy blocks. Rook e1, get the file, and now h3, a very useful move, hinting at the fact that this bishop is not very well placed, because there's so many pawns on light squares, it doesn't actually have a good retreating option. Hit the queen, queen a3, good move. Queen b6, attacking the b2 pawn, but the guy ignores it. Firouzja ignores it, I mean. If you take, then it turns out the pawns are falling anyway. You can take on a6, by the way, this is even stronger. g4, hit bishop here. Only square, by the way, bishop c2, rook e2, traps it. Yeah. So cool move, rook c1. Hit the queen, and the queen now swings over to the queen side to join in the attack. g4 is definitely a threat. Knight f6, queen e5, queen d8. Perhaps his opponent wants to go for a queen trade. Now knight g5, hinting at the fact that perhaps a sacrifice is coming soon, especially if there's no bishop near the king side. Hit the queen, it drops back, and now knight d5. Queen f3, eyeing f7. Rook takes b2. Now if we look at this position, there's just so many attackers near the black king. Knight, bishop, queen, bishop on c4, rook on e1 as well, and I do include g4. Looks like pieces are running out of squares. There's this brilliant option. Bishop takes. Let me turn it on just to show you. If we go back here, bishop takes is possible. Because after take, now you trap the bishop. You can't move it. If bishop f8, it looks like we are crashing through in style. Really cool move here. We can take, and now knight f7. Brilliant move. If you take, game over. The point is you occupy the f7 square. And not only that, it's not about pushing, it's about getting the other rook in the game as well. Rook c7, game over. So we go back. g4 played by Firouzja, still looks really good. But now, bishop f8 was actually a really cool way out, because after take, the guy can take. Not only that, take, that's hanging as well. So there was a chance for this guy. Now after g4, bishop f4 played. Now what's the difference? Well, let's see. Firouzja still plays this crushing move. Looks like white might be in some trouble, but no, we saw this crushing move in the previous line. Knight takes f7 works. Now what is happening here? King takes. If king takes, I mean, you take. You come back and you take the bishop. That option wasn't possible before because the bishop went to f8. Take, take, and now you are going to pick up the bishop. So really cool way to crash through. Perhaps you could say it makes sense that Firouzja crashed through because he had so many pieces. What was it? 6 pieces near the black king. Bishop f4. Take. The queen actually moved out of the way. Take, take. So this guy is finding a way to keep the game going. Yeah, fair enough. Now the knight actually comes back. The queen's come off. And this bishop on g4 looks trapped. And it is. The guy didn't even try to save it because bishop c2, we had this move before. Rook e2 actually picks it up. Take, take, knight f4. So the bishop is trapped. So take, check, king up, check, check, king back, check, and now king back. And after this mess, Firouzja is a bishop up. Take, knight g5, put pressure on the pawn. Come in, check, and then take as well. Firouzja now wraps up. The guy takes the center pawn, take that one, take, and it's just collapsing now. Keep the bishop, check, and take. Really, really cool move here because you can't take because that is mate. Rook a8 check anyway, and pieces are coming off. Game over. Really cool crushing victory. So the first clue is this guy is from Georgia. Next game. We get the same opening, the Slav. And now a little bit different this time. The guy goes for this creative option. Never seen this before so early on. The point is now you bring the knight back. Bishop out. All normal moves. And here we go again. Same type of move as we saw by Firouzja in the first game. Queen out to b3. Look out for this option when your opponent plays the bishop out. Rook defense. h3, put a question, and the guy took. Now it's quite important to ask this question because you should never give the bishop away unless you've got a great reason. You can't actually keep the bishop because you chase it, you attack it, and then you attack it again. It's this idea where white goes here, g4, knight in, and then the pawn goes to h4 again. And now the bishop is trapped. If you find a way to keep the bishop, like here, well then you actually mess up your pawns. And this looks very, very ugly for black. That pawn is dropping, that is just so weak. So after this move, it's very important that this guy takes and then now sets up in a solid triangle Slav way. Slav pawn structure. Castle, rook d1, and now e4. Same move as we saw in the first game. Firouzja opens up the center. The guy goes for b5, queenside advance, forcing the issue. This is a critical point in the game. How does Firouzja react? Which pawn does he take? He chooses to take in the center. Now, this bishop needs to open up. So you guys might be thinking, and I was thinking this as well, you take. But there's a really cool move here for black. I think it's perfectly okay if black can just recapture in the center, but we can flick in this intermezzo, this in-between move, before you hit the knight, and then black can find a way to take back in the center. And I think this is looking fine for black. That's why Firouzja here chose to advance. You're getting space anyway, but the point is, even though the position is quite blocked, white has an advantage. How? It's because it's time for Firouzja to reroute his pieces. The knight actually goes to f4. I think this journey is a good one. The knight comes to c3, e2, f4. He can even go to h5 to attack that pawn. The knight sits very well on this square. But it's not only that, it's this plan. It's a typical plan in these kind of positions. Well, in any position really, because you've got the bishop pair. Well, you've got the light squared bishop, your opponent doesn't, and Firouzja has found this really cool way to reroute. So firstly, his opponent gets space on the queen side, but you swing it over, and now the guy wants to trade queens, but Firouzja rightly keeps the queens on, keep the pressure, try and create an attack. And it's all about putting this bishop on a better square. Now the bishop is on this diagonal. Remember, the bishop used to be here, but biting on granite. Now it's rerouted to its beautiful square. And the guy doesn't have a bishop to contest against light squares. White is much better. As you can see here. G6. Hit the bishop again. Now, gigantic decision for the guy to trade. I mean, that was possible. Maybe he didn't want this one. Maybe that's why. Yeah. This. Maybe that's why he traded. Yeah, fair enough. You don't want to chuck a pawn like that. So take, take. The problem is, you've got two bishops against two knights. These two are doing nothing. And the position can open up. Not only that, look at the squares around the king. They're just too weak. Hit the queen. Start the attack. Defend your pawn. Black has no counterplay on the queen side. Firouzja is making it look really easy. Take the pawn. Don't want to go b3. Don't really want this mess. Knight actually sits well here, planning to get rid of that. So that's why Firouzja took the pawn, moved the rook, and now king g2. Typical way to get the other rook in the game. Get another piece in the attack. Bishop f6, two bishops slicing the board. I mean, if I turn on the engine now, just to show you guys, it is +7, +8, and it's ridiculous. White isn't even down any material. Two bishops, slice the board, game over very soon. g5, or else white was going to crash through, but g5, and there's a brilliant move here just to finish it off. It's a very nice backward move because then you get a queen and bishop on the same diagonal. Brilliant move, bishop b1, queen here, h7 will be checkmate, and there is no good way to stop it. So what a crushing victory. Next clue is this guy's played in many top tournaments. He's known for being really creative, and it is a pleasure to look at his games because he always brings something new, some fresh approach to certain positions. Let's go for one more. This time Firouzja played e4. Knight, bishop, and we'll take it from here. Both sides of castle. Time to strike in the center. White's got more space. This is the Philidor opening. And now a4. b3. Well, where's this bishop going? Here? Maybe not. Maybe it's coming out the other way. Bishop b2. Queen d2 and rook d1. It's move 12. Firouzja's got all his pieces out. He's got more space, and the question is always, now what? How do you even find a plan in this kind of position? So black reroutes. Point of this move is get the bishop out. I would seriously consider this move, offering a trade. Knight can come here. h3, stop the bishop coming out, which can be annoying. So knight g6, planning f4. d5, gigantic decision for Firouzja to lock up. Maybe he wants his opponent to play a move like here, and then something like this. You keep playing this kind of block position where white's going to be better because he's got more space. So d5 is a huge decision, to be honest. Very committal. I don't know if I would have played that, because after this, it looks very difficult to create a pawn break. So here, d5, knight in, bishop a3, attacking that pawn. And it's really cool now, because I was checking this. That doesn't work, because white can actually crash through in style through the center with knight takes pawn. And after take d6, it was a really, really cool way to crash through. Take, take. If the queens come off, then it looks like two bishops slicing the board. That pawn is dropping. This rook has the file. Might get the other rook to the file as well. Looking very, very strong. So you can't play c5 now. That's why the guy played rook d8. Queen e3. Take, take. Take. And I mean, Firouzja could have taken, but he played knight b5 first. I think taking is fine. It's just maybe the bishop comes out. Maybe he didn't want that option. So he wanted to misplace the queen first and then take. But this does give his opponent a chance to crash through. Knight takes g2. Perhaps this was a total shock for Firouzja. Take, check, and then king back. By the way, there was this really cool move. You can throw this move in. Beautiful in-between move where both queens are under attack. If you take back, then white can actually take back the knight because now the h3 pawn is defended. But Firouzja went for this. Check. And now knight g4. It looks so dangerous, and Firouzja calculated all this. Because in this position, there's only one good move. It's time to attack the queen on h3. Bishop f1 played. I think if you go queen h5, maybe the queen can come in. And it looks like the bishop might sit on g2. The knight is defending the critical h2 square. So there's no checkmate. So bishop back. Now the queen's come off. So lots of exchanges now happen, and the position totally transforms. The queen's come off. So knight takes queen. Bishop takes queen. Knight takes rook. Bishop takes bishop. Rook takes, and now rook takes. Rook takes. A quick glance, you see black is up so many pawns, but Firouzja, chances are he outcalculated his opponent and found a nice way to crash through. And we saw this really cool move before in one of those lines where black played c5. This is a problem. So now Firouzja can take on e5. Take, take. Rook d7, d6. Gluing the bishop in. King up. Now knight c7, setting up a trap, and the guy fell for it. I think Firouzja can continue with a move like rook d3, making sure you defend everything. Defend the b3 pawn, defend the d6 pawn, find a way to get this guy back in the game somehow. Maybe like this. But Firouzja played knight c7 here, and his opponent fell for it. One good move is rook c3, attack the pawn. And if rook here, well, you actually lose that one. So actually rook c3 is a great move, because you can't do this because of the move played in the game. Not that one. But look out for this coming soon. Because Firouzja now sets up a trap, knight c7, and the guy fell for it. And I bet the guy thought he was totally winning here. Rook takes bishop. It looks like this completely wins, because after take, take. That pawn is not becoming a queen. But Firouzja is very tricky after this. He's got a brilliant move here, and it's not to capture, it's just to push the pawn. And I bet the guy was so annoyed to even give Firouzja this chance. It's going to become a queen. There's no good way to stop it unless you give it up for the rook. But now check, and Firouzja is now a knight up. Knight comes back. To attack g7, drops. Now the knight comes back. Knight here. That pawn drops, and Firouzja comes back for that pawn. So, if we take stock, white has 2 pawns, black has 5. So I guess it's level, but really the knight is going to be so strong. Knight and rook are going to find a way to pick up the pawns. That's a really good move, by the way. Really clever move, because after this it looks like Firouzja's run into a self-pin. So it's going to take some time to unravel, but Firouzja plays this absolutely brilliant move in my opinion. Knight back to c4. Because you can't take the rook, because you actually pick it up with a fork. Never ever resign when you've got knights. Knight c4 is a great move. Now coming back to b5, and it turns out that pawn is going to drop. Throw in a check first, pick it up, and Firouzja cleans up, bring the rook up, throw in a check. You can even push that pawn. I'd seriously consider this one instead. But anyway, he went for rook f8, which is very clean, because it's not just this pawn, he's going after 2 at the same time. Check, and then he picks it up, and then the guy resigned. Time for a quiz. Each key moment I'll give the viewer 5 seconds to try and find a move. So here it is white to move. Do you remember what Firouzja played? He played a4 just to try and break open the queen side. Next key moment, g4 looks like traps the bishop. The guy went bishop f4. Do you remember what Firouzja played after this move? He crashed through with knight takes f7. If king takes, this was the problem. Take, take, and we lose a piece. Final key moment from the first game. King f8 has just been played. Can Firouzja take on h7? Because this bishop is under attack. Yes, he can. Because after take, you can't take the bishop because it's actually mate. Game 2, first key moment. After h3, the guy took. And then e6. But do you guys remember what is wrong with retreating the bishop to h5? Because it looks like a perfectly good move. The thing that's wrong is you expand. You just go after the bishop. g4, knight e5 and now h4. You're going to trap the bishop, and you can't play a move like this because it's just too ugly now. The guy went knight back to d7. Can you remember what kind of setup Firouzja went for here? You don't have to go for the exact next move, but do you remember how he deployed his pieces? First up, he put his knight on f4. Then he rerouted that bishop because it's doing nothing, but at the same time swing the queen over. The guy went for a queen trade, but no, and now the bishop is on its perfect diagonal. So look out for this idea in your own games. Put the bishop on the best diagonal. What was the final move of the game? How did Firouzja finish it off? Bishop b1, the queen goes to d3, game over. First key moment from game 3, rook d8 was played, but do you remember what's wrong with c5? Just trying to lock it up, because it looks like a good move. White finds a great way to crash through, knight takes pawn, and after take d6, attacking both the queen and the bishop, White has found a way to crash through. Firouzja's got himself into a self-pin. How did he get out of this pin? Knight c4. Before I reveal who the player is, just going to remind you of the clues. Very creative player from Georgia. He's actually the Georgian #1, been invited to many top tournaments. It's really cool to see him play because he tends to bring fresh openings, fresh ideas. And he's also come up with his own opening, and it's called this, the Something London system. That is the final clue. So, here we go. It turns out Firouzja was playing Bador Horbava in all 3 games in this video. So first up we had a Blitz game, a Titled Tuesday game, and another Titled Tuesday game as well. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Let me know if you want to see another one just like this. If you guys want to stick around, in the top left corner is YouTube's selection, and in the bottom right corner is my choice for what to watch next. Thank you so much for watching.